Welcome and congratulations on your new Timney trigger. My name is Alex. I'm here to help guide you through the installation process of the Alpha Smith & Wesson M&P trigger assembly, as well as give a few tech tips where needed to make the installation process seamless. Without further ado, let's get into it. Before we get started, I'm going to remove the slide, check the chamber, make sure there is no ammunition, no magazine, chamber is empty. There is a yellow tab on the inside of the magazine well. You will want to pull that forward. Makes disassembling the slide from the frame a lot easier. And then we can actuate the slide release. Slide comes off. This will be two parts. We will do the frame first, the trigger installation in the frame, and then we'll do the safety plunger in the slide after. There are 3 pins securing the trigger assembly and the sear in place. This front one and your trigger actual pivot pin, and then this rear one for your sear housing. We're going to drive all 3 of these out from right to left, and be sure that this lever is not in the way of these pins as you drive them out. When you get your trigger pivot pin removed, I like to keep the punch in there as you remove it the rest of the way. You can keep note of where this spring is aligned on the trigger bar. That is going to be important when reassembling it. As soon as you remove this pin or the punch, that spring is going to come loose. How I like to remove the sear and locking block is using the small punch. You can get up underneath these slide rails and just get it started, pulling those up nice and even, and then they should be able to come out. Now with the frame completely disassembled, we can set that off to the side and get started on the trigger. With the trigger shoe, the spring is going to be held onto the trigger bar with a small hook. We're just going to remove that now, otherwise it's going to come off on its own. That'll pop off. Keep that orientation. There should be one side that has a hook. The other side is going to be enclosed. Now with the trigger shoe, we want to start by removing this top trigger bar pivot pin, and that will get us started from the right to the left to remove the trigger shoe here. I'm going to take a small block and punch. Be sure not to bend this trigger bar and keep that rear straight edge kind of away from the table. Just enough to get it started, and that removed. With the trigger bar assembly, we can start installing our trigger shoe. There is a 50 thousandths Allen screw here that we want to back out. You can see down this edge when it starts to clear. As soon as it is clear of that notch, we can take our trigger bar assembly, get that lined up, and just start it. Make sure, looking from both sides, that it's going to align in that hole. And then you can tighten this snug. It doesn't have to be too tight. Just want to make sure that the trigger bar assembly is going to have this tang in the back and your point for the spring right behind the trigger shoe. Now that we have the trigger shoe attached to the trigger bar, we want to take our spring, reinstall it, that hook side underneath here. This will rotate around and it should align there. Now for ease of installation, we can put these two together and get this alignment pin started. This will capture everything in place. Make sure that it is through that spring. You have spring tension on it. And now this is one kind of a complete assembly. With the sear housing, we can get started by pushing this tab back against it. This will alleviate spring tension against the sear. As it's rotated forward, it compresses that spring, pull it up, it alleviates a little bit of pressure. Now this one, you can push this pin out, and that's going to capture your sear and this little actuator on the side. And so I cover that, pull this pin all the way out. There's going to be a plunger and a spring underneath it. When those components are removed, try not to lose that plunger and spring. Now we can take the new sear, rotate it to match this little teardrop. And then your connector should fit right in line with it. Getting this in might be a little tricky as they are small. You can get it started here. And then line those holes, kind of look through the center, and you should be able to see when it's about lined up to get this pin started. With it started, just a quick wiggle of the sear should line up all the way through and push the rest of the way. Now we can take these two components, trigger bar assembly, along with your sear housing, kind of capture those as one unit, and we can take our frame and align all of these up at once, being sure not to bend the back edge of this trigger bar. That goes in. Sear should be able to just push down. Now take the locking block, make sure that it slides in easily, isn't getting caught up on the trigger or your slide release. And now that front pin with the alignment pin should be able to take your trigger pivot pin and slide this in. When doing so, it should push that alignment pin out. Now that spring is captured, be sure when you pull the trigger, it's coming back and that spring isn't behind it. Now we can take our two other pins, one for the sear, one for the front, and drive these back in until they're flush. With the frame complete, we should have our trigger shoe, the old sear, and the alignment pin as leftover components, and then this can be set aside. We can start working on removing the factory safety plunger and getting that replaced with the Timney. To get started on the slide and removing the factory safety plunger, there's going to be two different models. One will have an optic cut on the top of the slide where there's a 50 thousandths Allen screw capturing in your safety plunger and spring. On the models that have just a standard sight, you'll want to loosen this rear screw, capturing that. And then the dovetail is kind of tight. We're going to disassemble this slide entirely, loosening that and removing our striker plate. Take a small punch. There's a collar here with our firing pin. We want to push this down and the plate should come back out. We can go ahead and remove the striker and the barrel. Now with a sight pusher tool or a punch and a hammer, you want to start from this right side and work it to the left, as the safety plunger is going to be located on this side. You don't have to remove the sight all the way, just enough to get to the bottom of it. We're going to use a sight pusher tool to bring it far enough over and show you. With the sight pushed over slightly more toward the middle, there's going to be this captured piece and the spring underneath it, and then the plunger underneath that. Now we will have to go a little bit more just to show where this is at. Want to make sure that this does not go flying and lose it. With the sight moved over far enough to access the safety plunger, this can be removed as one assembly or two. That is capturing the spring, and then take the factory safety plunger, remove that. Now you can reinstall the new safety plunger. This rounded edge goes into the slide, having that exposed hole up top. Make sure that this moves freely in your slide and it's not binding. Then take your spring and that little plate on top, and we can capture it while we push this back over to close that. Now that we have the sight reinstalled, pushed over where we want it, we can take that 5/64 Allen, retighten this screw, and get the slide put back together. We're going to take our striker, insert that in here. You can hit the safety plunger, make sure that that is moving freely. That moves freely. Take your end cap, push this collar down until it clears. It'll snap into place. Take our barrel, guide rod spring assembly, line that up. And now the slide is reassembled, ready to be put on the frame. Lock that back. Now to function check it, make sure that that yellow tab is pushed back. And now we can cycle it. Ensure proper functionality and reset. And it feels great. And that's it. We hope this helped you with the installation process of the Alpha Smith & Wesson M&P trigger. If you have any remaining questions, our world-class customer service agents are more than happy to help. Just give us a call, 623-223-1111, or head to our website and click the yellow Contact Us button on the right-hand side. If not, congratulations on installing your Timney trigger. You can now go shoot with ease knowing you've got the world's finest trigger in your hands.